Okay, right. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all here. My name is Sophie Collar, and I'm one of the careers consultants for the Career Service. So I'm here today just to give you what I'd call a bite-sized session on cover letters. So I'm going to take you through quite quickly and give you the real basics of writing a cover letter, but then I will as well let you see some of the resources that we have at the Career Service. So you've got an idea yourself of how to write. Anyone who's not muted, if you could just mute before we get into the session, that would be great. Thank you. Okay, so first of all, before we get going, if you wouldn't mind just registering for this session, it really helps us get an idea of which are our more popular sessions that we want to run again. And also it means that I can send you the slides for this event afterwards, and I can also send you the recording. So that link there should take you through to how to register for the session. So if you have a look in the chat or use the QR code, if you can just pop on there the name of the session, so the bite-sized cover letter, and then I can get in touch with you with any follow-up afterwards. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, and before I go any further and sort of get fully into the session, I just want to show you first of all the pathways. So you should hopefully be able to see here our Career Connect screen. So hopefully you're all familiar with Career Connect, because you probably will have used it to log on to this session and book for this session, and that would have been under events. But what I do actually want to show you is this pathways here. If you've not come across this yet already, this is really, really good for you to know about. There's a slight delay, so I'm sure it will come up in a moment. Yeah. So you can see here we've got 4 different pathways at the moment. So one for interviews and assessment centres, one for CVs. I'll come to this one in a second, and then another one for further study if you're thinking about doing postgraduate study. But this is the one that I just want to show you today. So as I say, this is quite a quick sort of dip into cover letters, but if you want to go into it in more depth, you can actually follow one of our pathways here. And there's cover letters, how to write cover letters, speculative cover letters. There's templates there that you can access, ways to sort of e-learning that you can do to reflect a session learning, and also career set, which I'll come to as well. So I just wanted to show you that at the beginning of the session, so it stays nice and fresh for you. And I will come back to that later and remind you about it later as well. Okay, so in terms of what you'll get from this session, so hopefully in about 20 minutes time, you'll understand the fundamentals of writing a cover letter. You'll feel more confident about making yourself and your skills and experience stand out more. And you'll get some ideas on how to tailor your cover letter to engage with your audience as well. Now, first of all, I just want you to do a quick quiz. So I'll bring up a poll on here. You should all be able to see that. Now, it's just a quick true or false poll. It won't come up on the recording, I'm afraid, but everyone that's in the session should be able to see. So the questions are: 1, should you be aiming for around 1 page of A4 on your cover letter? Is that true or is that false? You think your cover letter should be repeating what's on your CV? And question 3, do you think the purpose of a cover letter is just to outline the skills for the job? Is that true or is that false? Okay, so just going to give, oh, you've all answered that really quickly there, so that's great. It's giving us a really good snapshot. So I'll just share the results on there. So what you'll be able to see is that you all thought it was true that you should be aiming for 1 page of A4. That's absolutely right. I'll show you some templates so you can get an idea of what the format should look like, but you should be trying to cover about a side with a nice amount of white space in a decent sized font, about maybe about 10 or 11. Your cover letter should be repeating what is in your CV. So a few of you thought that was true. Most of you thought that was false. That one is false. So there might be a little bit of crossover between your CV and your cover letter, because you might be referring to your CV or some experiences or achievements that you've had. But the idea of a cover letter is to expand on a CV and to have an opportunity to really talk about your motivation for applying for a role, or why it is that you want to work for a particular company as well. So actually your CV and your cover letter should work quite harmoniously together, and they should complement each other in that way, but they shouldn't just be repeating. And the purpose of a cover letter is just to outline skills for the job. Okay, that one was a bit of a trick question, so I'm really sorry for those 5 of you who thought that was true. It's not 100% false, but it is false in that it's not just to outline the skills for the job. So skills for the job should be taking up approximately 1 paragraph out of 5. There's 3 main paragraphs, which we'll go into in a bit more detail, but skills will just be one of those. Okay, so thanks for doing that. It's given you some food for thought, hopefully, as we go through the session. Okay, so what I've done is, because it's quite a fast-paced session, just brought together 5 really top tips for writing a cover letter. And those are: make sure that it looks good, spend a bit of time planning it out before you get going, make sure you really tailor it to the organisation and the job that you're applying for. Make sure that you're really promoting yourself and selling yourself and your USPs, your unique selling points. And also back it up. So if you're using examples, make sure that you're backing those examples up. Sorry, if you're saying that you've got skills or knowledge, make sure you're backing it up with examples. But we'll go into each of those in a little bit more detail as well. So in terms of those first impressions, here are some do's and don'ts for you, okay? So what you do want to do is try and keep it to a page, as we've discussed. Make sure you're formatting it correctly in terms of the addresses, which we'll come to momentarily. Make sure that you include the date. Address it to a recruiter, okay? So ideally, if you've got the name of the person that is recruiting, try and address it to them personally. Always include the job reference and title, especially if it's a bigger organisation. They're recruiting for a few posts at the same time. That can get a little bit confusing, so keep it as clear as possible. Make sure you're using a nice clear font and signing off correctly, which we'll also come to. So don't narrow the margins and reduce the font size. So I see this sometimes when people just really have so much they want to say and they can't quite fit it onto one page. So those margins start to narrow more and more, and then the font gets reduced with that ultimate goal of let's just get it onto one page. But actually, you really need to think about those first impressions when they're looking at that cover letter. And if they see a page crammed full of tiny text, that's automatically going to put them off reading it. So it really is important to spend time really prioritising what you're putting on that one page. Don't try to make your cover letter stand out with graphics or colour. I know you want to engage them and get their attention, but that can be a real no-no for some employers. You know, try and just keep it traditional and stick to black and white, just to be on the safe side. Please don't copy and paste from a template. There's so many templates out there on the internet. I see it a lot with personal profiles, and it's really not, it doesn't reflect you as an individual, and you should be tailoring this letter to you and your strengths and your skills. And it's usually quite obvious when you've copied and pasted from somewhere. And please make sure you proofread it when you finish as well. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay. Here's just a slide on fonts. So in terms of how it looks, you can see here the different kinds of fonts, and you can imagine that something like Britannic Bold, if there's a full page of that, that's going to quite hurt your eyes. So try and stick to something that is nice and clear. Something like Open Sans or Verdana or Arial are the ones we tend to recommend. So think about the structure of your cover letter. So the easiest part of your cover letter is the top and the tail, and that's quite sort of straightforward really. So this is what you'll have. You've got your address up in the top right hand corner there. and their address over on the other side and a little bit down. You need the date in there, as we've discussed. Dear Sir or Madam. Okay, so ideally, if you do know the name of the person who you're addressing it to, use their name, but understand that you won't always have that name, so you might need to say dear or Sir or Madam. And then that first line should be the reference of the job and the reason why you're writing to them. I can just see someone's asking, can it be 1.5 pages? I would say, I mean, we recommend 1 page really. It's usually possible to fit it down into 1 page, but I will be talking to you about how you can get an appointment with someone if you're really struggling with that. And dear recruitment team, yes, you can, but dear Sir or Madam is a bit more standard really. Okay. And then at the end, so it's just thinking about signing off now. So you want to end it on a positive note, say something like that. I look forward to discussing this with you further. Now, this person has signed off yours faithfully because they didn't have the name of the person they were sending the letter to. So golden rule, if you're writing dear Sir or Madam or dear recruiter and you don't have the actual name, you always sign off yours faithfully. However, if you do have the name of the recruiter, then you would sign off yours sincerely. So that's the easy bit, okay? And now we need to think about what you're going to put in the middle bit of your letter, so the real sort of content. And what we would recommend is having 3 main paragraphs along these lines. Now, with this format that we recommend, it's absolutely not set in stone. You don't have to follow this. It's just something that we recommend, but sometimes when you start to write your letter, you might find other ways of structuring it. As long as you're covering these points in a nice, clear, structured way, it should come off okay. So first of all, you're thinking about why this company. Secondly, why this role. And then thirdly, your skills and experience match to the opportunity. Okay, so I've mentioned that it's really important to tailor your cover letter. You should really be writing it from fresh every time that you're applying for a job. And you're not just tailoring it to the role that's advertised, but you're doing your research on the organisation as well. So in terms of the company or the organisation, you can find some information from their website. They usually have quite a lot under the About Us section, where they might talk about their values or what their short, medium or long-term strategy is, or if they have a mission as a company. So do have a look at that, but bear in mind that other people applying for the same job will probably go straight to that part of the website as well. So think about if there's anything that you can do to stand out a little bit more. So it might be that you're following them on LinkedIn or Twitter, or you're doing a little bit of deeper research to see if that company has appeared in the news and why, or if there's any particular projects or members of staff that you've met at fairs, for example. So really do a little bit more research into why you want to work for that organisation. Think about how your values align with their values and show how you can demonstrate it. So how can you back that up? Is there anything that you've done that backs up that you have those values? Think about how closely your degree is linked and how your life ambitions or your career ambitions align with their goals as well. As I say, think about if they've had any recent exciting projects or news updates or achievements, and make sure that you show you've done that deep research on them. And make sure that you get across why you want to be part of what it is that they're doing. And in terms of why the role, so this is where you will be looking at the job advert and the job description and thinking about that day-to-day job. So looking at that advert, what is it about that role that really appeals to you and why? Okay, so it might be that you have the particular technical skills or transferable skills that they're asking for. And if you have got those skills, then you also need to talk about how you've acquired them. So it might be through your course, it might be extracurricular that you've done, possibly volunteering, part-time work, or if you've been involved with societies. Any of those are really good examples. Think about how what you've done during your degree matches up with what you'd be doing in the job. And again, that applies for extracurricular experience you've got and why this job fulfills any ambitions you have. Okay, so you can see this is actually overlapping a little bit with skills as well. And then why you? Okay, so what is your unique selling point? If they're getting 50 applications for this job role, why should they choose you? And it's really important to include this in the cover letter. So again, you're thinking about those skills and experiences you've had that make you a great candidate for this role. And when you're looking at the essential skills that are listed on the job description, you're then thinking about, again, how you align to that and what are your unique selling points. So don't just say that you've got those skills and experience, but use real evidence and go into detail. We'll talk about that in a moment, about how you can use evidence to back up what you've done. Be positive, okay? Sometimes as human beings, we lean towards being a bit modest or a bit self-deprecating. CV and cover letter is not the place to be self-deprecating. So if you see things that perhaps you're worried that you're not, you've not quite got the skills or experience or knowledge, instead of highlighting that, just be positive about what you do have, what you can offer them. And as I've just mentioned, you need to make sure that any claims you're making, you're backing up, okay? So a good way to do this is use the CAR model. And you might have come across this before in interviews or when writing your CV. There's the CAR model or the STAR model, which is similar. But the CAR is using context, action, and result, okay? So the context and the result tend to be quite short and sweet. So context, because the employer really needs to, they need to have that context of what you were doing. They might not understand the project that you were involved with. So explain it a little bit for someone who wasn't there. And then the result is important because you need to quantify it and finish up that example. But the main part of your example really should be the action. Okay, so that's where you're going into a little bit of detail about what it was about you in that situation that made that situation successful. Okay, what actions did you take? What skills did you draw down on? And definitely use a list of active verbs as well, which I will show you in a moment, which gives you some really good example of the language that you can use to really bring that alive as well. So ideally, you're trying to be quite concise in your cover letter whilst also being engaging. So the CAR model, using that format, really does help you to do that and explaining how you did things rather than just stating that you did things. So here's the active language link. You can also use the QR code to take you through to that. And if you'll have a look, there's lots of really fantastic examples of verbs that you can use to put into your cover letter to really bring it alive. And as I mentioned in the result, make sure that you quantify that really importantly. It just gives it so much more validity as an example if you can add a quantity to it. So an example there is, rather than saying set up an Instagram account, you might want to say something like established and delivered a social media strategy which doubled the number of users in the first month. That paints so much more of a picture without using a lot more words. And finally, don't forget to proofread. Really important. It's very easy to do, especially if you're up against a deadline, but try to factor in that you'll need to probably take a little bit of a break away, go away from it, come back to it with fresh eyes and read it again. You might want to read it out loud just to check the cadence and the pace of it and make sure it all makes grammatical sense. If you can get somebody else to have a look through it for you, please do. And we've got our applications advice appointments as well. So we don't proofread within those, but it might be helpful to have someone else have a look over it for you. And I'm just going to quickly give you a quick spin around some of the extra resources that we have at the Career Service. So as I say, this is quite a short session, but we have a lot more information and support and interactive tools out there for you. So this is Career Set. You may have come across it already. We launched it earlier on this year for CVs, but you can now use it for cover letters as well. So you can upload your cover letter, ideally upload the details of the job that you're applying for, and it will give you automated feedback along the lines of the software that a lot of employers use. So it will give you feedback on the format of your cover letter, the kind of language that you're using, and really importantly, if it's picking up on the keywords that are in the job description as well. And here we have some more help on our website with cover letters too. So this QR code or link will take you through to Career Set, which we just mentioned, and there's templates on there as well to get you started and some examples. Our active language examples can be found on there, as well as speculative cover letter advice. Okay, so that's it for the session. I will stop recording now in case anybody has any questions. So just give me 1 second to do that. If you do want to get in touch with us, then this is how to do so. We've got web chat, and if you go on to Career Connect, there's queries on there as well. And you can keep up to date with what we're doing just by following us on social media with the @UOM Careers handle. And